Hey, everybody, Mike from Profiling Evil, and welcome to this Profiling Evil Live. It's great to jump on. I just don't do this enough, but wanted to jump in and see how everyone's doing. And I've had a number of emails today about Serenity's body being recovered, and then, of course, the charges now of her mother and her mother's boyfriend. And I thought I'd just answer some questions about the investigative process. Maybe we could review a little bit of what's going on and see how you're all feeling. So we'll do that. We'll kind of keep it loose and easy. Tracy Winders, thank you. I'm going to pop this up and let's just chat a little bit. This is a tragic end that didn't need to happen, and I would sure agree with that, Tracy. There are so many options available if you don't want your child. Yeah, it is a real tragedy when you think of the families out there that are wanting to adopt or to be moms and dads, and it's a tough one. Wendy Henschel, hello. It's nice to see you. Tina Karenson, how you doing? Sherilyn Schaffner, the bunch of folks piling in, and what we're chatting about is, number one, the recovery of Serenity and McKinney, and what's going on with the investigation and what may have led up to this. And it's speculation, but we're going to just chat based on what my experience has been in these kinds of investigations and what most likely happened. And to all of you who are supporters, channel members, thank you so much for doing that and for all of your support with us. So just pop up questions, we'll chat about them, and we'll see where things go. Crystal Wilson says, am I the only one who feels mom was abused and terrified? Not that it makes it right. You know, that is a question that comes up over and over again. Are the offenses that are created and caused the result of nurture or nature? And if you are, I'll plug my little Academy series going on right now. If you're a channel member and doing the Academy series, it's actually one of the areas we talk about is nature versus nurture. Do I commit crimes because I didn't get enough warm cookies and cool milk after school? Or do I commit crimes because I'm Irish and I like to fight? I mean, that's kind of the nurture versus nature argument that goes on. And do those who abuse show signs that they themselves were abused? And I think that the gamut is broad and really difficult, and each individual case needs to be looked at as an individual case. But anyway, we'll go from there. Linda Hanley, thank you. Hi, Mike. And by the way, I'm not wearing glasses. Again, my vanity gets in the way of that, so give me some slack. Christy B, rest in peace, Serenity. Very nice. Thank you. And folks, if you want to super chat, feel free to do that. Always love the support financially, but it's not required. And to those of you who are new members or channel members, thank you so much. Oh, hey, here we go. Real lification. Boy, I don't know if I got that right or not, but thank you. Yeah, we were excited to hit that 100K mark. Karen Lee, agree with you. This is a terribly sad thing. And Tennessee Girl, thanks for jumping on. So Wendy's question, I'm confused. I missed that she was found. Can you start from when and how she was found? So I think that is a great place to start. And maybe the way we'll do that first, I thought we might just look at a couple of pictures real quickly. Again, for those of you who are kind of trying to put two and two together of who Serenity is, sadly, we've had too many little children disappear, and they continue to disappear on a regular basis. But this beautiful little child became the news a couple of weeks ago, and it made us think about Summer Wells, and well, the list just is too darn long, and it's just tragic. So here's what we know. This little child disappeared at Christmas. The last time she was seen was Christmas 2 years ago, a year ago. So it was at the end of 2021 that her information became available, and of course law enforcement jumped right in and started looking. Her mother and boyfriend were located a few days later, several states away, and were taken into custody for custodial interference, which basically is the only charge you can do when you can't find the child. And if you think back to Lori Daybell, custodial interference was the original charge that they extradited her on in order to get her back to Idaho, where they could then eventually hold her. But they held her for months and months and months on that. So they were both charged with custodial interference because they weren't turning the child over and letting people know where the child was. This is probably what happened at this point. Is mom and boyfriend both went to separate jail cells, both probably immediately got counsel, and then the screws start to tighten down. And what we hoped would happen in Daybell and never has, unless there's something we don't know about. This would be a perfect example of how you kind of hope in these investigations it plays out, is you let the pressure start to build, and you hope that one of those will step up and say, hey, if you'll give me a deal, I'll tell you what happened. And it's frustrating for folks. And I'm going to look in here for chats on how you feel about that when prosecutors make deals with people who should go to prison for things. But because we want to get higher up the chain, we make a deal and we say, okay, we're going to grant you immunity if you will tell us what the person higher up the ladder did. And I'm sure that is what led to this child's body's discovery, frankly, is that I think we'll learn in the days or weeks to come or months to come when this goes to preliminary hearing and trial, that one of them probably turned on the other. And you might put in your thoughts here of who you think that was. Now, Chrissy, I don't know if this is true or not, Chrissy. So I'm putting it up, and I hope it is, because you're saying there's question about whether there's some violence in the background of the boyfriend. Um, just don't know the answers to that. But what I suspect is that one turned on the other, or mom got a conscience finally after sitting in jail and maybe a few days in jail or a week in jail. If there's drug addictions or other kinds of things going on, may have cleared her mind enough to have guilt start to step in. And you remember what Freud said about guilt? It's the guardian of our goodness. And so what we hope for is that as people start to get their mind a little clearer, that especially if they have committed a crime themselves, that they step up and make it right. But what we do know is that somehow law enforcement figured out where this child was. And I want to just show you a couple more pictures real quickly before I flip over, because I want to go to the map where this happened. So here's mother and boyfriend in jail. So Catherine McKinney is Serenity's mom. And then the boyfriend is Dakota Hill. And whether it's true or not that there were violent tendencies in his background, we'll wait to hear. But I mean, this is kind of interesting. So look at his height. I mean, this is a guy that's 6'3" or so. He's a big guy, and it'll be interesting to learn more about him. And then, of course, here's this beautiful little child that now doesn't get to come home anymore. So kind of sad. I thought it might be interesting to you to look at a map of the area where the body was recovered. So let me pull that up here and we'll just chat a little bit about that. All righty. So, to kind of orient you, we're moving to the state of Kentucky, Louisville, Kentucky, just south of Louisville. So, what I'm going to do is just kind of zoom into the region here so you can get a sense of the region. Right here's Louisville, Kentucky. And this little child was recovered just south of Louisville. And if we measured it, it would be only about 17 miles south of Louisville. And let's go right into the discovery site because this is really kind of interesting. And I thought you might enjoy just seeing the terrain first. And so I wanted to kind of zoom in and look at the terrain where the child's body was found, because in a moment I'll flip it over to the aerial imagery where you can see how densely wooded it is and what a rather remote area it is when you think about it. But just this kind of gives you a sense for the mountains that are in that area, the hills and valleys and areas. And then if we go over and we look at this from just aerial imagery, you can see that this is the ultimate needle in the haystack, finding a little child even in here, even though there are roads in the area and you can certainly see them. And this is a little elementary school that she probably would have eventually gone to, this little point down here at the bottom. But this is the area that law enforcement is releasing that her body was recovered. And it just kind of gives you a sense of how incredibly dense that area is. So let me look at questions for a moment here and see if there's anything popping up. And Diane Harlow, I'm with you. After 40 years of looking at these cases, I'm pretty sick and tired of parents doing this too. And I don't know what we do to fix it. And these poor little children that are victimized, and they don't know any different. That little girl, she didn't know that there were better parents out there, and she loved her mom and probably her father and grandparents, and she just didn't get the chance to see him. So I think this is kind of interesting. Margaret's talking about Jacob Wetterling, and I actually know Jacob's mom, and before I retired, I spent a lot of time at the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children and worked with Jake's mom and know that case very well. Sadly, there's just too many of these darn things. Mary, thank you so much. That's really nice. Thank you. I'm drinking water tonight because I can't afford Diet Dr. Peppers tonight or something, but thank you. That's really nice. Let's see. Dawn Marie, thanks for your comments here. And let's see. Ruby Price is saying, I pray that the boyfriend has some fellow inmates show him what it feels like to be beat on. Well, okay, we'll pop that up anyway. Let's see what happens and go forward. So, hey, let's look at just quickly the news media coverage tonight, because I thought it was really good, the story that they put out. So I want to pop that up real quick, and we'll just watch that and then chat a little bit about that in just a second here. Let's see. If I can figure out how to do that. And oh, hey, good to see Brent Montgomery popping in. How you doing, Brent? Thanks for taking care of the mothership on that. That's awesome. Lisa Swanson, nice to see you pop in. Thank you. And I'm trying to get this little video popped up. Here we go. So let's listen to this for just a moment.
Our top story tonight, police have found the body of a missing 4-year-old girl. Her mother and her mother's boyfriend are charged with her murder. State troopers tell us how they found the little girl in the middle of the woods. It's an outcome no officer wanted.
Just absolutely heart-wrenching. it's tough.
4-year-old Serenity McKinney was found dead in a wooded area near the Jefferson-Bullitt County line.
Anytime children are involved in a case, for a parent especially, it is very difficult. The emotional toll that police officers, people just don't understand the emotional toll the investigators play on all levels of law enforcement that have to deal with children, and especially in circumstances like this.
Now, I wanted to pause there for just a minute to kind of just chat about the fact of what this Kentucky state trooper or state police officer is saying. There is an emotional toll on you as an investigator when you go to a scene and you discover human remains. I mean, those are sacred spots that are also sadly you have to treat as a crime scene, and it is really an emotional disgust for an investigator. And the challenge that you really face is most investigators are younger, so they're not old guys like me. They're younger and they have families at home, and so those little 4-year-old children, 6-year-old children, 12-year-old children, they are associating with those little 4 and 6 and 8, 12-year-old children that they have in their own homes, and so they're personalizing a lot of stuff, and it really does become a heavy burden at times. And investigators that don't figure out how to find balance in their life really struggle through these kinds of events when they do those. And it just, I can't stress enough how hard it is at times. And for me personally, I was grateful because I had clergy that I could lean on. Linda, thank you so much for that. I had a spouse at home that I could go and decompress, but most of the time you can't tell anybody except for the investigator that you're working with. And so you keep all this stuff kind of held up inside. And the challenge becomes then, as you look for an offender, you create this monster in your mind. And that monster, in this case, if let's say it's her mother, may not be a monster at all. She may just be drug addicted or a victim herself. I mean, there's no question if she committed this homicide, would be responsible and need to face justice, be penalized. But we create these monsters in our mind instead of realizing that these are people that just stepped off the edge and really stepped off in a bad way. But let's go back and watch this a little further here.
Started earlier this month when Serenity's grandparents in Shelby County reported her missing after not seeing her since Christmas of 2020. Police arrested the girl's mother, Catherine McKinney, and her mother's boyfriend, Dakota Hill, in Kansas last week and charged them with custodial interference.
Unfortunately, these are bad situations. You have a missing child, but the public was amazing. You know, they all wanted to be able to at least bring some closure to this.
Those tips helped a dozen law enforcement agencies find the little girl's body on Friday.
I just want to say that, I mean, this was the ultimate example of partnership, you know, sharing all of our resources. Obviously, it's tragic, and we hoped it turned out better, but everybody gave their 110%. And one way or another, we wanted to find out what happened to Serenity.
Charges against Hill and her mother have been upgraded to murder and abuse of a corpse.
Well, there you go. And Sally Langdorf, thank you so much. And you know what? I hope you don't mind my ramblings on these kinds of things. They come after looking at hundreds, if not thousands, of violent crimes, and spending a career doing something that I am so grateful I had the chance to do. Anyway, let's look at some of your questions. I mean, this is really it's great news for all of us, and the family included, that this child was discovered and now can be put to rest, and that's good news for grandparents. And you know, I put in my early video that I had concerns about where was Serenity's father, and there have been some great shows, and I really liked some of the things that Annie did, for instance, on her show about the father. My question is a little more deep seated about where's the father in these kinds of cases. How does a child go a year without someone stepping up? In defense of a grandparent, I have talked to many grandparents who are estranged from their children and their grandchildren. And while they may try to have contact, they don't. And then there's this kind of weird edge that we all could find ourselves in, where we have an estranged child and we're worried about a grandchild, for instance, and we don't want to ruin the little bit of relationship we have with our estranged child. And so we're a little bit afraid to step up and demand that we see that grandchild or know that that grandchild's well. And if you watched my video a few days ago, I just stepped out on the ledge and said, it doesn't matter if you lose your relationship with your child, if it's in protection of a child, a grandchild, or someone who deserves to have adults watching out for them. So hopefully we all will have that kind of strength to step up and make calls. And if we worry about a neighbor, step up and tell that neighbor, or tell family services or someone else that we want that neighbor checked out. Criminality, thanks for becoming a new member. It's really nice of you. Jeff Lund, thank you for your comments. Smiling is contagious. It seems to be a lot of these little ones who haven't started school yet are going way too long before something reports them. Now, you know, this is interesting because if you go back to a year and a half ago when I first started Profiling Evil, that was one of the predictions I made, is that as we continue through the COVID pandemic, that there are many children specifically who are going to be victimized on a basis that is continuous, because they don't have that security outlet of being able to tell a teacher at school or someone at church that says something's wrong with this kid, or even in the neighborhood that says something's wrong. And I think we're going to see these numbers continue to eke up as the coronavirus disease continues to keep a lot of people locked away and not participating. The other problem is we're all wearing masks, or I hope we're all wearing masks so we can somehow kill this coronavirus disease, but that hides bruises and sadness and other kinds of things. And so it's become really challenging right now, and it really requires vigilance on all of our parts. So it's going to be interesting to see if a tip came into law enforcement, and why did it take a year for a tip to come into law enforcement, if that's what led to the discovery of Serenity's body, or if mom or boyfriend turned and said, no, here's where we placed the child. It'll be really interesting to see what that site where the body was recovered looks like, and we'll eventually see that as this makes it to the court system. But keep in mind, in these kinds of cases, there are often multiple crime scenes. And again, if you're taking the Academy channel membership thing, you're going to learn about these crime scenes. But the bottom line is there are crime scenes where people initially come into contact with each other. We call it the initial contact spot, where an offender may identify a victim. And that is a very specific location that teaches us a lot about the behavior of the offender. Then you have the location where the crime actually occurs. So when you think of a little Serenity, it may have been that this little child was injured in the home, but then she's disposed of in this wooded location. And that becomes the third crime scene, which is called the disposal site. And the way in which she is disposed of, it tells us a lot about the offender and what their mindset was at the time that they did it. Was it an organized crime scene where everything was kept pretty pristine and the body was hidden very well? Or was it kind of disorganized and they just tucked a little girl under a bush and walked away? So that's going to tell us a lot. And so as we see the arrest affidavit, hopefully next week, we're going to learn a lot more about it. It's going to give us some real insight into what the mindset was of who committed this crime. And you think about this. If the boyfriend, for instance, is responsible, then why didn't mom step up unless she too is terrified or not in her right mind? If mom did it, is the boyfriend aware and keeping things quiet? And so there's going to be a lot to come out. I mean, that's what I loved about criminal investigations, is there are so many little angles that you can take and chase. Mama forever. Let's see what you have to say here. The only thing that helps me deal with these horrible situations is picturing these little sweet ones being embraced in the arms of the Savior. Well, there you go. Thanks, Mama forever. Yeah, I think we have to rely on faith. And if your belief system is like Buddhism, and they still find faith and ways to reconcile. And of course, Buddhists may believe in the same God that you and I believe in, or the same form of deity, or they may have a very sophisticated way of looking at it. The Hindus may look at things different, and so we sometimes we go to our own faith system, and I don't know what their faith system is. I would suspect in Louisville, they probably have a Christian faith system, and whether they rely on that or not, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see what the family does and how they might send things out. Diane Harlow says, they say we are all one bad decision away from prison. Isn't that the truth? And don't you sometimes just think, and it's using the old quote that's been said before, but by the grace of God, there go I. I mean, you wonder, why did you luck out with parents that taught you value systems? Or you had goofy parents that didn't teach you, but somehow you learned it from someone else, a teacher in school, or some type of mentor along the way. So yeah, we have to be really grateful that we are able. But then it boils down to, in my opinion, still pulling your bootstraps up and saying, okay, it's choice time. Do I go right or do I go illegal? And people have to be responsible for choices that they make. Criminal TI, I think I may have said it, but a new member, thank you. Jamie Girl, let's see. I would love to hear Mike's professional opinion about the Christian Andreacchio case. You know what? I don't know a thing about it, Jamie. So send a email over to profilingevil@gmail.com, or better yet, go to the evidence room. And I apologize. There's just, sadly, there's so many cases. Do you know, in the United States, I've said this before, but 800,000 plus people every single year disappear. They just disappear off the map, never know what happens to them. Now, thankfully, according to the Bureau of Justice, 87% of them are going to make it home in that first year. So maybe it's a wife who gets mad at her husband and goes to Las Vegas for the weekend and finally returns home and things get back to normal. But that leaves roughly 104,000 people every single year that disappear off the face of the earth. We have no idea where they went. That's 104,000 Serenity McKinneys. Imagine the impact. That's now 4 grandparents. That's 400,000 grandparents or extended family or parents. I mean, the numbers are horrendous. And you think about most cities, at least in the United States, and those of you that are watching around the world, you can pick your own cities. Think of the cities that are 100,000 people just disappearing off the map every single year. And that's not to mention the 20,000 bona fide murders that occur in the United States, for instance, every single year. Some countries have more per capita, some have fewer, but these numbers are just horrendous and so frightening at times. But Jamie Girl says, I hear we all have a level of criminal thinking, even if it's something like speeding while driving. So I'm very criminal when it comes to driving, then, Jamie, because I have to set the cruise control, or I inadvertently will be busting the law every time. So, um, hey, I hope you're watching the cult series that we're doing, and I hope it's not disturbing. I'm trying to keep it more educational and direct to the point. Last week, I actually took a few days off from work, and I went and visited my former nemesis in a major cult. For those of you who paid attention to Warren Jeffs and the cult down in Colorado City in Hilldale, I spent a couple of days with Warren's bodyguard and Rulin, the previous self-proclaimed prophet, and the prophet before that, trying to understand many of the ghost stories that I didn't know 20 years ago. We were absolute enemies 20 years ago, and I thought it was time that we had a discussion and talked frankly. And at times it was very heated. At other times it was really educational. So it'll be something that I'll release in I don't know, maybe a month or so. But this coming week, we're going to be talking a little bit about cults and just cult dynamics. And every other week we discuss something on cults. So I hope you're paying attention to that and enjoying it. And I hope you're looking and paying attention to the Profiling Evil Academy if it fits your budget. If you can, think about our channel memberships on just the very lowest, the $1.99 a month, which certainly helps us pull things off. And sometimes people get offended when you bring that up, and I don't know what to tell you other than it's expensive to run a YouTube channel. So it helps, and we're grateful that we're able to use it to hopefully bless the lives of a lot of other people, as those of you who have been watching for some time know that we do with the money that we get outside of paying bills. Let's see, Mike. I've been watching those thanks, Kimberly. Yeah, thanks for jumping in. Renee Ritchie, there is a case the prosecuting attorney's office needs to nail them down to the wall before for the maximum consecutive sentences, no plea bargains. Well, sometimes a plea bargain is the best thing you can do. I mean, we ended up pleading a lot of cases over my career just because it would expedite, and you would get this as long of a sentence as you might by really dragging people through the trenches. But Cecilia Olson, did you hear about Jean-Luc Brunel? Yes. And folks, if you haven't been following that, if you go back to my earlier videos on Jean-Luc Brunel or Jeffrey Epstein or Ghislaine Maxwell, you hear me talk a lot about him. And isn't it interesting that when Prince Andrew, well, I guess you still call him Prince if he's been stripped of all of his rights? Anyway, when Andrew agreed to settle out of court last week, this thing really heated up, and people were saying, now what's going to happen with Brunel, and will the other unnamed people that have been hiding out under the Ghislaine Maxwell cloak start to surface? And of course, then you see Jean-Luc Brunel commit suicide. Really interesting. And I suspect if the records are right from the Ghislaine Maxwell case, there are at least 8 people. So I'm going to hold it up. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8 people who are really stressed out right now and trying to do everything they can to prevent that thing from going forward any further. So Fiber Floozy Crafts, good evening to you as well. Well, folks, I wanted to just jump on. I'm going to give you a couple more minutes to fire any questions off that you might have. I hope that you're hitting the subscribe button. We really want to continue to grow. We want to give you the kinds of stuff that you like. So please put chat or information in the chats and send us information, because I look at all of them. I can't respond to all of them, but I really do appreciate those and go through those. So I think we let me see. Lots of comments. I think that Sharon here expresses the feelings of a lot of people, and everyone is kind of coming in on the same thing here. Oh, this one, Linda, thank you so much. But everyone's coming in the fact that we are all about the protecting of the victims of crime, and gosh, just way too many of them. But it is always just a blast to jump on with you and to spend some time with you. I appreciate the support that you've all given us as I've kind of tried to figure out this thing. And like tonight, I want you all to know the back office isn't in there helping me tonight. I actually tried to do this on my own. So hopefully I haven't fouled things up too much. I want you to know we appreciate. Please hit that like and subscribe button. Please subscribe. Consider the channel memberships. Thank you so much for all that you do to support us and help us. Monday night, for those of you who are members of the Academy, the next Academy session will come out on Monday night. Tuesday night will be cults. And then Wednesday, that fires over to the audio podcast of cults. And then I would like to know if you could take 1 minute. I kind of changed things up a little bit and thought rather than going on for an hour and a half or 2 hours, that I would just start trying to do more of a TED Talk kind of a thing. How do you feel about the way we're doing the weekly crime recap? Is it giving you what you need? And would you like to see more of the lives where I just, with no warning, pop in like we did tonight? What would be the thing you'd like to see? And we'll. Oh, and hey, Wendy, I got to put this up just because I guess I might be arrogant, but this is so nice. Pulled it off on my own, so hopefully the back office will see that and realize. Kimberly Myers. Thank you. Yeah, isn't it cool that some of these little tykes are being found? And I don't remember the Paisley Schultes case well, so I don't know if it's a tyke or not. So please forgive me if it isn't. And I will say that Valentine's Day came and went, and I made a conscious decision not to exploit the Wustenhoff family, but I talked to Dennis Wustenhoff's wife, his widow. I talked to the girls and texted the entire family over the holidays. And if you remember that case, go back and watch my video on the Wustenhoff case, or go watch our video with Dr. Phil when we did it on the Dr. Phil show. But this is a police detective in Long Island, New York, that 30 plus years ago was murdered, probably by another police officer. And the case has not been solved yet. And but the pressure continues to mount, and we are continuing to push the story out in hopes that the new DA in Suffolk County will step up and take that to the next level. So anyway, been a lot of really powerful things that have happened in the last year. So to all of you, thank you so much for supporting us, and have a great evening. Make sure you're spending time with your family and calling loved ones that you haven't talked to, and we'll see you. We'll see you soon at the next crime scene.